Good evening, sleepyhead. I hope you have your favorite cuddly stuffed animal in your warmest blanket. Time to cuddle in for another story. Tonight we'll read Chester's Violin, A Piglet's Tale. Josephine was a very refined pig. She wore a tall wig, a lace collar, and jewelry every day of the week, and on Sunday she served tea in china cups to her elegant friends, Vera the swan and Gloria the poodle. Naturally, Josephine had high hopes for her little son Chester. She dressed him up in fine clothes, trained him to walk tall on his hind legs, and warned him to stay out of the mud. Chester did as he was told, but he looked so perfectly charming and perfectly refined that the other piglets never dared to call or ask him to play. So he had no friends. Because little Chester had no friends, his mother kept him very busy. One day she said, "Chester, I think music lessons are so worthwhile. I will arrange some for you." And before Chester could say a word, she was out the door and on another mission to refine her son. She returned home bubbling over with excitement and carrying a very strange-looking suitcase. She snapped it wide open and exclaimed, "Look, Chester, I've bought you a violin. Your lessons start tomorrow." Was Chester obediently pleased? No. This time he groaned and pushed the violin away. The next morning, looking very refined but feeling very glum, Chester again did as he was told. He picked up his violin case and trotted off on his own two hind legs to his first violin lesson with Miss Kitty Mews. She lived, his mother had said, near the playground. All of a sudden, and most unexpectedly, Chester heard a friendly voice calling to him from across the street. "Hey, Chester, do you want to play?" Nobody had ever said anything so nice to him before. Chester felt very flustered and confused. Instead of stopping, he pretended not to hear and hurried on his way. Only when he reached the playground did Chester stop to catch his breath. Then suddenly, out of the blue, a ball was pitched his way. As it fell towards him, out of the blue, Chester forgot about his mother, his clothes, and his violin lesson. He dropped everything and ran. He ran with his arms outstretched and caught the ball. It was a good catch and a glorious moment for Chester. Now he was part of the gang, racing up and down the field, passing the ball and squealing at the top of his lungs for joy. Chester played so hard that he was soon covered with mud. Before long he had holes in his pants, but he was too happy to care. It was too good to last. Suddenly, out of nowhere, his mother appeared. She stood over him looking very angry and completely blocking his way. The other little pigs scattered in all directions, leaving Chester to his fate. He stood stock still, head bowed, rooted to the spot, hardly daring to look up at his mother. He blushed with shame, and she, poor mother, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At last, with a deep sigh, she pulled Chester to his feet. Once he was standing straight and tall, she picked up his violin case and marched him home. Chester was so dirty that the clean-up took a long time. It started in the garden under the water pump and ended in the tub with soap bubbles tickling his nose. But by then his mother had lost her frown and was all smiles again. She said, "Chester, you must apologize to Miss Muse and make up for the lesson you missed today. There's nothing to be afraid of. I'll take you there myself." When Chester finally met Miss Muse, he had a big surprise. She was not puffed up and snooty like his mother's friends. She was the nicest, most elegant grown-up he had ever met. And she turned out to be a most wonderful teacher, too. Soon Chester was standing at ease, with the violin tucked under his chubby chin, smiling to himself and paying close attention. His mother Josephine, who was standing by watching them, was very impressed. With a sigh of relief, she left the room and went out into the garden for a stroll. The minute she stepped into the garden, Josephine could not help but overhear a conversation that was going on, just a stone's throw away, on the other side of the hedge. Goodness gracious! Vera and Gloria were standing there in deep conversation, saying rude and unkind things. Whom were they talking about? Josephine quickly hid behind the trellis and pricked up her ears. Why, they were talking about her little Chester. This is what she heard them say. How can Miss Muse stand it? A pig taking violin lessons? Why, it's outrageous. Josephine was heartbroken. She fled back into the house in tears. She was still blowing her nose and trying to calm herself when Chester burst out of the music room, calling, "Mommy, Mommy, I can play the violin. Please come and listen." It was true. After only one lesson, Chester could play scales flawlessly, up and down from start to finish without any squeaks or scrapes. Miss Muse was so pleased she called him her star pupil. Josephine applauded and beamed with pride. From that day on, Josephine turned her back on those snobs, Vera and Gloria. She still dressed up in her wig and jewelry and served tea in delicate china cups. But the friends she invited were new. They liked her with or without her frills. As for Chester, from that day on, he wanted to play the violin and practice an hour every day. He no longer had to stand tall and look refined all day long. Now he was free to spend lots of time at the playground with his new friends, running around on all fours and getting as muddy and dirty as he pleased. The end. Have a wonderful night, little one.